The rain hammered against the windows of Buckingham Palace as Thomas Parker stood in the shadows of the East Wing corridor. His hands trembled as he clutched a brown envelope containing documents that would change everything. For 23 years, he had served the royal family with quiet devotion. Tonight, that devotion was about to be tested. Thomas was a royal guard. Not the ceremonial kind tourists photographed, but the invisible type who knew where every door led and every secret hid. He had watched princes grow into kings and scandals dissolve into silence. But what he discovered 3 weeks ago in a forgotten filing room kept him awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he had the courage to speak. The envelope felt heavy. Inside were property records, shell company documents, and bank statements. All linked to one person, Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla. If you're finding this story gripping already, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, this gets intense. Thomas had stumbled upon the documents by accident. He was searching for maintenance records when a dusty box fell from a high shelf, spilling papers across the stone floor. At first they seemed meaningless legal jargon and financial terms he didn't understand. But one name appeared again and again. Tom Parker Bowles. And beneath it, a web of properties scattered across London, the countryside, and even overseas. The problem wasn't that Camilla's son owned property. Many royals and their families did. The problem was how it was hidden. Offshore companies, false names, addresses that didn't match public records. And the timing most of these purchases happened right after Camilla became queen consort. Thomas knew what this looked like. It looked like someone was building an empire in the shadows while the country struggled with a cost of living crisis. It looked like privilege turned into greed, and it looked like a scandal waiting to explode. But who could he tell? The royal family had systems in place to handle problems quietly. Thomas had seen it before. Whispers became silence. Questions became warnings. If he went to his superiors, the documents might vanish. If he went to the press, he'd be labeled a traitor. His career would end. His reputation would be destroyed, maybe worse. Yet every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of people lining up at food banks. Families who couldn't afford heating, young couples who would never own a home, and somewhere, hidden in legal paperwork, was a fortune built on secrecy. Thomas walked to the window and looked out at the rain-soaked courtyard. A black car with tinted windows pulled through the gates. He recognized it immediately. It belonged to Tom Parker Bowles. The man himself stepped out, pulling his coat tight against the weather. He moved quickly, head down, as if he didn't want to be seen. Thomas watched him disappear into a side entrance reserved for family. Something twisted in Thomas's stomach. This wasn't just about documents anymore. This was real. This was happening right now. He looked down at the envelope in his hands. Tomorrow morning, he had a decision to make. Stay silent and keep his life intact, or speak up and face the storm. The rain grew heavier. Thunder rolled across the London sky. Thomas Parker had no idea that his decision would not only shake the crown, it would put his own life in danger. Asterisk by morning, Thomas had barely slept. He sat at his small kitchen table in his flat in South London, staring at the envelope. Coffee grew cold in his cup. Outside, the city was waking up, buses rumbling past. People rushing to work, life moving forward like nothing was wrong, but everything felt wrong. He thought about his daughter. Emma, she was 16, bright, with dreams of becoming a doctor. Her school fees weren't cheap, and Thomas worked extra shifts to make sure she had what she needed. If he lost this job, those dreams might die with it. His phone buzzed. A text from his supervisor. Need you early today? Security briefing. Don't be late. Thomas's heart sank. Security briefings were rare. They usually meant something had happened, or someone knew something. He grabbed the envelope and shoved it into his jacket. He couldn't leave it at home, not now. If they were already suspicious, his flat might be the first place they'd search. The tube ride to the palace felt longer than usual. Thomas kept his head down, avoiding eye contact. Paranoia crept in. Did that man across from him glance too long? Was that woman on her phone taking his picture? He told himself he was being ridiculous. Nobody knew. Not yet. When he arrived at the palace, the usual morning routine felt different. Guards exchanged quiet words. Supervisors moved through halls with tense expressions. Something was happening. Thomas found his supervisor, Gerald, waiting in the security office. Gerald was ex-military, a man who rarely smiled and never wasted words. "Close the door," Gerald said. Thomas obeyed. His pulse quickened. "We've had a breach," Gerald continued, his eyes hard. 3 weeks ago, someone accessed restricted areas. Files were disturbed. Thomas felt his blood turn to ice. "We've been reviewing security footage," Gerald went on. "Checking access logs. Interviewing staff." "Do you know who it was?" Thomas asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Gerald studied him for a long moment. "Not yet, but we will." The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled tight. "If you know anything, Thomas, now's the time to say it. This isn't a joke. Unauthorized access to royal documents is a serious crime. Whoever did it could face prison." Thomas felt the envelope pressing against his ribs. His mouth went dry. "I don't know anything," he lied. Gerald's gaze didn't waver. "Good. Keep your eyes open. Report anything unusual?" Thomas nodded and left the office, his legs weak beneath him. They knew someone had been in that room. They were hunting. And it was only a matter of time before they found him. He spent the rest of his shift on edge, jumping at every sound. When his break came, he slipped into a bathroom stall and pulled out his phone. His hands shook as he searched for journalists who covered royal stories. He found one, Rebecca Chen, investigative reporter known for exposing corruption. Her articles were fearless. She didn't back down. Thomas typed out a message. "I have documents about the royal family. Properties hidden in secret. Involves Queen Camilla's son. Need to meet. Urgent." He stared at the words. His finger hovered over the send button. Once he pressed it, there was no going back. A knock on the bathroom door made him jump. Thomas. "You in there?" It was another guard, Mike. "Yeah, just a minute," Thomas called back, his voice tight. He deleted the message. "Not here, not now." Too risky, he flushed the toilet for show and stepped out, forcing a casual smile. But that night, as he walked home through the dark streets of London, he felt eyes on him. He turned several times, scanning the shadows. No one was there. Or maybe they were just very good at hiding. When he finally reached his flat, he found the door slightly ajar. His stomach dropped. He always locked it. Always, Thomas pushed the door open slowly. The lights were off. Everything looked normal, but something felt wrong. The air felt disturbed, like someone had just left. He flicked on the lights and walked through each room. Nothing was missing. Nothing was moved, but on his kitchen table, where he'd left his cold coffee that morning, sat a single playing card, the King of Hearts. No note. No explanation. Just the card. Thomas's hands began to shake. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a message. They knew who he was, and they were watching. Thomas didn't sleep that night. He sat on his couch with the lights on, the King of Hearts card on the coffee table in front of him. Every sound made him flinch, the creak of the building settling. Footsteps in the hallway above, the distant wail of sirens. Someone had been inside his home. Someone who wanted him to know they could reach him any time. By dawn, he'd made his decision. Staying silent would only make things worse. If they already suspected him, waiting would give them time to destroy evidence or destroy him. He needed to act fast. He pulled out his phone and found Rebecca Chen's contact information again. This time, he didn't hesitate. He typed quickly, "I'm a royal guard. I have evidence of hidden properties linked to Tom Parker Bowles. Offshore accounts, shell companies. I think my life may be in danger. Can we meet today?" He hit send before fear could stop him. Minutes felt like hours. Then his phone buzzed. "Calf Nero, Camden. 2 p.m. Come alone. Sit by the window." Thomas exhaled. It was happening. He called in sick to work, something he rarely did. His supervisor sounded suspicious, but Thomas kept his voice weak, complaining about stomach issues. Gerald didn't push. The morning dragged. Thomas paced his flat, checking the locks repeatedly, peering through the curtains at the street below. Everything looked normal, but normal didn't mean safe anymore. At 1 o'clock, he grabbed the envelope and left. He took a complicated route switching tube lines, doubling back. Watching reflections in shop windows to see if anyone followed, the city felt like a maze designed to trap him. When he reached Camden, his nerves were shredded. The cafe was busy with the lunch crowd, students on laptops, tourists comparing maps, office workers grabbing quick coffee. Thomas scanned the room and spotted her immediately. Rebecca Chen sat by the window, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore a simple jacket and jeans, blending in perfectly. A notebook sat closed beside her laptop. Thomas approached slowly. "Rebecca." She looked up, assessed him in seconds, then nodded to the chair across from her. "Sit. Order something." "Look natural." Sat and waved down a waiter, ordering tea he wouldn't drink. His hands were shaking. "You have the documents?" Rebecca asked quietly, her voice barely audible over the cafe noise. Thomas slid the envelope across the table, hidden beneath a newspaper. Rebecca didn't open it. Instead, she placed her hand over it and leaned forward. "Before I look at this, you need to understand what you're doing. If this is real, it will explode. The royal family doesn't forgive whistleblowers. Your life will change forever." "It's already changed," Thomas said, pulling the King of Hearts card from his pocket and showing her. "Someone broke into my flat last night. Left this on my table." Rebecca's expression darkened. She photographed the card with her phone, then looked back at him. "Do you have somewhere safe to stay? Family? Friends outside London?" "My daughter, don't tell me where," Rebecca interrupted. "The less I know, the better. But get her somewhere safe. Today." Fear spiked through Thomas's chest. "You'd think they'd hurt her?" "I think powerful people protect their secrets," Rebecca said. "And Tom Parker Bowles is connected to some of the wealthiest, most influential people in Britain. If what you found is real, they won't just sue you, they'll bury you." She opened the envelope discreetly, pulling out a few pages. Her eyes moved quickly, scanning the documents. Her expression remained neutral, but Thomas saw her jaw tighten. "This is big," she whispered. "This is really big. Is it enough?" Thomas asked. "It's a start. But I'll need to verify everything. Cross-reference property records, trace the shell companies, confirm the bank accounts. That takes time." "How much time?" "A week. Maybe 2. "I don't have 2 weeks," Thomas said, his voice cracking. "They're already looking for me. They know someone accessed those files." Rebecca looked at him with something between sympathy and calculation. "Then we need to move faster. And we need to keep you alive long enough to see this through." She pulled a burner phone from her bag and slid it across the table. "Use this. Don't contact me on your regular phone. Don't go home. Don't follow any routine. Change your appearance if you can." Thomas took the phone, feeling the weight of what was happening settle over him like a shroud. "One more thing," Rebecca said, her voice colder now. "If this story is false, if you're lying or trying to set me up, I will destroy you. Understood?" "It's real," Thomas said firmly. "Every word." Rebecca nodded, then stood and gathered her things. "I'll contact you in 48 hours. Until then, disappear." She walked out without looking back. Thomas sat alone, staring at his untouched tea. Around him, life continued as normal, but his world had just tilted off its axis. He pulled out his regular phone and called his daughter's school. "This is Thomas Parker. I need to pick up Emma early. Family emergency." As he left the cafe, he didn't see the man in the dark coat across the street. The man who had photographed him entering. The man who was already making a phone call. Thomas picked Emma up from school with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. She climbed into the car, dropping her backpack with a thud, immediately suspicious. "Why are you picking me up?" she asked. "You never picked me up. Just wanted to see you," Thomas said, pulling into traffic. His eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror.
Dad.
"What's wrong?" He wanted to lie, to protect her from the fear clawing at his chest. But Emma was smart. She'd know. "We're taking a little trip," he said carefully. "Just for a few days? There's some trouble at work, and I need us to stay somewhere else for a bit." Emma's face went pale. "What kind of trouble?" "The kind that means we need to be careful." "Dad, you're scaring me." Thomas reached over and squeezed her hand. "I know, sweetheart, but I promise we're going to be okay. I just need you to trust me." They drove to his sister's house in Brighton, 2 hours south of London. Margaret lived in a quiet neighborhood near the coast, far enough from the palace to feel safe. She opened the door with her usual warm smile, but it faded when she saw Thomas's face. "What happened?" she asked immediately. Thomas waited until Emma was upstairs, unpacking, before he told Margaret everything. The documents. The card. The journalist. With each word, Margaret's expression grew more worried. "Thomas, this is insane," she whispered. "You're talking about the royal family. They have resources we can't even imagine." "I know. Then why are you doing this?" Thomas thought about the question. Why was he doing this? He could have left those documents in that dusty box. He could have pretended he'd never seen them. His life would be normal right now. Safe, predictable, simple. But would he be able to look at himself in the mirror? "Because it's wrong," he said quietly. "Because while people are struggling to survive, someone's building a secret empire on their backs. And because if I don't speak up, who will?" Margaret studied her brother for a long moment, then nodded. "Emma can stay as long as she needs. But you need to be careful. Promise me." "I promise." Thomas stayed one night, then left early the next morning before Emma woke. He couldn't risk leading anyone to her. The drive back to London felt like driving toward a storm. The burner phone Rebecca gave him remained silent for 2 days. Thomas moved between cheap hotels, paying cash, never staying more than one night. He bought hair dye and a baseball cap, changed his clothes, walked with a different posture. He became a ghost in his own city. On the 3rd day, the phone finally buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "Everything checks out. It's worse than we thought. Meet me tonight. 9 p.m. Waterloo Bridge. South Side." Thomas's stomach twisted. Worse than we thought? What did that mean? He spent the day in a library, staying off the streets, trying to read but seeing nothing. His mind raced with possibilities. More properties? More money? Connections to something darker? When evening came, he made his way to Waterloo Bridge. The Thames stretched out black and cold beneath the lights. Tourists took photos. Street performers played music. Life continued, oblivious. Rebecca appeared from the shadows. Wearing a hood, her face barely visible. "Walk with me," she said. They moved along the bridge. Just 2 more people in the London night. "I've traced everything," Rebecca began, her voice low. "The properties, the shell companies, the money. It's not just Tom Parker Bowles. There's a whole network. At least 5 other people connected to the royal family. They've been doing this for years." Thomas felt his knees weaken. How much money? Hundreds of millions pounds hidden across 3 continents. Properties in London, Paris, New York, Hong Kong, all purchased through layers of companies designed to hide ownership. "Can you prove it?" "I can prove the properties exist and that they're owned by shell companies. I can prove those companies lead back to people in Tom Parker Bowles' circle. What I can't prove, it is his direct involvement. He's insulated. Layers of lawyers and accountants between him and the properties, so we can't touch him," Thomas said, despair creeping in. "I didn't say that." Rebecca stopped walking and turned to face him. "I have enough to start asking questions publicly. Once the story breaks, pressure will build. Other journalists will investigate. People inside will start talking. Secrets like this don't stay buried once someone shines a light. When will you publish?" 2 days. I need to lock down a few more sources, get legal clearance. But it's happening." Thomas felt relief and terror in equal measure. 2 days. In 2 days, the world would know. And there would be no going back. "There's something else," Rebecca said, her expression darkening. "I've been followed. Twice now. Black cars. Professional. They know I'm working on something. Did they see you with me? I don't think so. But Thomas, once this goes live, they'll know it was you who leaked it. There's going to be fallout. Criminal investigation, maybe. Job loss, definitely. They might try to make an example of you, I know. And you're still willing to do this? Thomas looked out at the river, at the lights reflecting on the dark water. He thought about Emma, about the life he was about to lose, about the storm he was about to unleash. Yes, he said. I'm willing. Rebecca nodded slowly. Then we finish this together. She handed him a phone number written on paper. Lawyer, friend of mine. When the story breaks, call him immediately. He'll help protect you. Thomas took the paper and tucked it away. They parted without another word. Disappearing into opposite sides of the city, Thomas returned to his hotel, a cheap place in Brixton with peeling wallpaper and a noisy radiator. He lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he'd just made the bravest or stupidest decision of his life. His burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. Thomas's heart stopped. He stared at the screen, debating whether to answer. Finally, he picked up silence, then breathing. Then a voice, cold and measured. Mr. Parker, you've made some very unwise choices. Thomas sat up, adrenaline flooding his system. Who is this? Someone who wants to help you avoid a terrible mistake. Meet me tomorrow, alone. We can make this go away. You can have your life back. I don't. Your daughter is safe. For now. Margaret's house in Brighton is lovely this time of year. Thomas's blood turned to ice. If you touch her, no one has to get hurt, Mr. Parker. Just meet with me. That's all. 10 a.m. Hyde Park. Serpentine Bridge. Come alone, or the journalist gets hurt first. The line went dead. Thomas sat in the dark, shaking, Emma's face burning in his mind. They'd found her. They knew where she was, and now he had a choice that was no choice at all. Thomas didn't call Rebecca. He didn't call the police. He didn't even call his sister to warn her. Any phone call could be traced, could tip them off, could put Emma in more danger. Instead, he spent the night pacing his hotel room, mind racing through scenarios. If he went to the meeting, they might kill him. If he didn't, they might hurt Emma. If he ran, they'd find him eventually. There was no good option, only less terrible ones. At 9 a.m., Thomas left the hotel. He didn't head straight to Hyde Park. First, he stopped at a convenience store and bought a cheap notebook and pen. In a coffee shop bathroom, he wrote everything down: dates, names, locations, count numbers, everything he could remember from the documents. He sealed the pages in an envelope and mailed it to himself at Margaret's address. Insurance. If something happened to him, the information would still exist. Then he walked to Hyde Park. The morning was cold and gray. Joggers moved along the paths. Dog walkers chatted. Tourists fed ducks by the water. Everything looked peaceful, normal. But Thomas felt like he was walking to his execution. He reached the Serpentine Bridge at exactly 10 a.m. A man stood at the center of the bridge, looking out at the water. Mid-50s, expensive coat, graying hair. He didn't look like a thug or a hired killer. He looked like a banker or a lawyer, which made him more dangerous. Mr. Parker, the man said without turning. Thank you for coming. Thomas approached slowly, keeping distance between them. Who are you? My name doesn't matter. What matters is that we resolve this situation quickly and quietly. You threatened my daughter. The man finally turned, his expression mild. I stated a fact. She's at your sister's house in Brighton. That's not a threat. That's information. What do you want? I want you to stop, walk away. Forget what you found. In return, you keep your job, your reputation, and most importantly, your family stays safe. And if I don't? The man sighed like a teacher disappointed in a student. Then we proceed with criminal charges. You unlawfully accessed restricted royal documents. That's theft. Possibly treason, depending on how aggressively we pursue it. You'll go to prison. Your daughter's future will be destroyed by association. The journalist will be sued into bankruptcy for publishing stolen materials. You can't stop the story. She has everything, can't we? The man smiled thinly. Mr. Parker, you have no idea what resources are available to protect certain interests. Stories disappear. Evidence vanishes. Witnesses recant. It happens more often than you think. Thomas felt cold dread settling in his stomach, but beneath it, anger began to burn. So people just get away with it, he said. Stealing. Hiding money. Breaking laws. While normal people suffer, the world isn't fair, Mr. Parker. Surely you've learned that by now. That doesn't mean we stop trying to make it fair. The man's expression hardened. Idealism is a luxury you can't afford. You have one daughter, one sister, one life. Are they worth sacrificing for a principle? Thomas thought about Emma, her laugh, her dreams, the trust in her eyes when she looked at him. Then he thought about the thousands of families struggling, the young people who'd never own homes, the elderly choosing between heating and food. Yes, Thomas said quietly. They are. The man's face darkened. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Thomas turned and walked away. Every step he expected something, a hand on his shoulder, a knife in his back, a shot from the trees. But nothing came. He made it off the bridge. Across the park, into the crowded streets of London, his burner phone buzzed immediately. Rebecca, where are you? We need to talk. Now, Thomas called her. They got to my editor, Rebecca said, her voice tight with anger. Lawyers showed up this morning. Threatened legal action. Said the documents were forged, that you're a disgruntled employee making false accusations. Can they stop the story? They're trying. My editor is scared. He's talking about killing it. Thomas felt everything crumbling. What do? We go bigger. I have contacts at The Guardian. They're less afraid of royal lawyers. But I need you on record. An interview. Face on camera. If you're willing to stand behind this publicly, they can't make it disappear. They threaten my daughter. Silence on the line. Then, Thomas, I can't tell you what to do. If you back out now, I understand. But if we don't publish, nothing changes. They win. They always win. Thomas closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw two paths. One led to safety, silence, surrender. The other led into darkness and uncertainty. To set up the interview, he said, Are you sure? No, but do it anyway. 6 hours later, Thomas sat in a small studio room facing a camera. The journalist across from him was named David Cole, a veteran reporter known for holding power accountable. His questions were direct and unforgiving. You understand? You're accusing members of the royal family of financial misconduct. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm presenting documents I found. Documents you stole. Documents that were hidden for a reason. You believe Tom Parker Bowles built a secret property empire? I believe the evidence suggests that. Yes. Why should people trust you? You're a royal guard who broke protocol, who stole confidential files. Thomas looked directly into the camera, into the lens, into the eyes of everyone who would watch this, because I have nothing to gain and everything to lose. Because I'm about to lose my job, maybe face criminal charges, maybe put my family in danger. Nobody does that for a lie. People do that when the truth matters more than comfort. The interview lasted an hour. When it ended, Thomas felt hollowed out, empty. Rebecca met him outside the studio. That was brave. That was terrifying. The story goes live tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. It'll be everywhere by noon. Thomas nodded numbly. What happens now? Now. Chaos. The palace will issue denials. Lawyers will attack. The media will swarm. And you need to disappear until it settles. I need to get to Emma and go. Tonight. Before the story breaks. Once it's out, they'll be watching her. Thomas caught the last train to Brighton. His legs felt weak as he climbed the steps to Margaret's door. She answered immediately, pulling him inside. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. Is Emma okay? She's asleep upstairs. Thomas, what's going on? he told her. All of it. When he finished, Margaret looked pale. The story publishes tomorrow, Thomas said. After that, everything changes. You might be questioned. There might be reporters. I'm sorry, stop, Margaret interrupted. You did the right thing. Scary, maybe reckless, but right. Thomas went upstairs and sat beside Emma's bed. She was sleeping peacefully, unaware of the storm about to break. He kissed her forehead gently. I love you, he whispered. Everything I did was for you. For your future, I hope someday you understand. At 6 a.m. the next morning, the Guardian's website crashed from traffic. The headline read, Hidden Empire, Royal Family's Secret Property Network Exposed. And beneath it, Thomas Parker's face. The world exploded overnight. Thomas woke to hundreds of notifications on his old phone. She'd foolishly turned on for just a moment. Missed calls, messages, news alerts. The story was everywhere: BBC, CNN, Sky News. His face stared back at him from every screen. Royal Guard exposes hidden fortune. Palace in crisis. After whistleblower's bombshell claims, Tom Parker Bowles denies. Wrongdoing as property scandal erupts? Margaret came to his room, pale-faced, holding her tablet. Thomas, you need to see this. The palace had issued a statement. Cold, clinical, devastating. ALLEGATIONS, made by former Royal Guard Thomas Parker, are categorically false and represent a serious breach of trust and confidentiality. Mr. Parker unlawfully accessed privileged documents and has misrepresented their contents. Legal action is being pursued. Tom Parker Bowles maintains no improper financial arrangements exist. Former guard. They'd already fired him. Erased him. But then Margaret scrolled down. Look at the comments. Thousands of them. And they weren't all attacking Thomas. Finally, someone with courage. I believe him. Why else would he risk everything? The royals always protect their own. Time for accountability? Whether true or not, these questions deserve answers. The public was divided, angry, demanding investigations. Parliament was already calling for inquiries. Financial regulators announced reviews. The scandal was too big to simply disappear. Thomas's lawyer, the one Rebecca recommended, called within the hour. Mr. Parker, we need to meet immediately. The Crown Prosecution Service will likely pursue charges. We need to prepare your defense. Will I go to prison? A pause. Possibly. But public opinion matters. If we can show you acted in good faith, believing the public interest outweighed protocol, we have a chance. Over the next week, Thomas lived in a strange limbo. He couldn't leave Margaret's house without being swarmed by reporters. Camera crews camped outside. Journalists shouted questions. Some called him a hero. Others called him a traitor. Emma stopped going to school after classmates and teachers bombarded her with questions. She sat at the kitchen table, anger and confusion warring on her face. Why did you do this? She finally asked Thomas one night because it was right. Right for who? Not for me. Not for Aunt Margaret. You destroyed our lives. The words cut deeper than any headline. Emma? No, I get that you wanted to be some kind of hero, but heroes don't think about what happens after. They just do things and leave everyone else to deal with the mess. She left the room, slamming the door. Thomas sat alone in the dark, wondering if she was right. If he'd been selfish? If courage was just another word for recklessness when the people you loved paid the price? But then, something shifted. 3 weeks after the story broke, a former accountant came forward. He'd worked for one of the shell companies. He had internal emails, proof of instructions, evidence directly linking Tom Parker Bowles to property purchases. Then another whistleblower emerged, and another. The wall of silence was cracking. Investigators found discrepancies in tax filings, properties registered under false names, money trails that didn't add up. What Thomas had started as one man with stolen documents was becoming a full investigation. involving multiple agencies. Tom Parker Bowles gave a televised interview, denying everything, but he looked nervous, cornered. His lawyers issued statements. But the evidence kept mounting. 2 months later, Thomas received a letter. It was from the National Audit Office. They were launching a formal investigation into royal financial arrangements. They wanted Thomas to testify. His information had been crucial to their preliminary findings. More importantly, the Crown Prosecution Service dropped the charges against him. Public pressure had been too intense. Prosecuting a whistleblower, when the evidence suggested real wrongdoing, looked like vindictive revenge. Not justice. Thomas was free. He still had no job, no career. His name was forever tied to scandal. But he was free. Rebecca called him that evening. "You see the news?" "I saw. Tom Parker Bowles has stepped back from public duties. Voluntarily, they're saying. But it's effectively exile. They're distancing themselves." "Does that mean he'll face real consequences?" "Maybe. The investigation is ongoing. But Thomas, you've already won. You made them acknowledge the problem. You forced transparency. That's more than most whistleblowers ever achieve." That night, Emma came to Thomas's room. She'd been distant for weeks, barely speaking to him. "I saw something at school today," she said quietly. "We were studying ethics in class, about people who speak up even when it costs them everything. The teacher used you as an example." Thomas looked at her, afraid to hope. "She said what you did took real courage, that most people choose comfort over truth, and that even when whistleblowers lose, society wins." Tears welled in Thomas's eyes. "I'm still angry," Emma continued. "Our life is harder now. I can't pretend it isn't. But I think I understand why you did it. And maybe I'm proud of you." She hugged him. Not the long, warm hugs of childhood, but something smaller. Careful, a beginning. 6 months later, Thomas sat in a cafe in London. Not hiding anymore. Not running. Just living. The investigation had concluded. Tom Parker Bowles faced no criminal charges. His lawyers were too good, the evidence just slightly too circumstantial. But he'd been forced to divest from his properties, pay back taxes, submit to financial oversight. The hidden empire was dismantled. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was something. Thomas now worked as a consultant for financial transparency organizations. His story had made him unemployable in private security, but valuable to advocacy groups. He gave talks. He advised other potential whistleblowers. He helped organizations understand how secrecy enables corruption. His life was different. Smaller in some ways, but cleaner. Lighter. Emma was thriving again. She'd found new friends who admired rather than mocked her father. She was still planning to become a doctor. If anything, the experience had strengthened her sense of justice. As Thomas sipped his coffee, his phone buzzed. A news alert. Parliament passes new Royal Financial Transparency Act. The law would require all royals and their immediate family members to publicly disclose property holdings and significant financial arrangements. No more shell companies. No more hidden empires. It had taken a year, investigations, public pressure, political battles. But it had happened. Thomas smiled. Not the smile of victory, but of quiet satisfaction. He'd been a nobody. A guard who followed orders and kept his head down. One dusty box of documents had changed everything. He'd lost his career. He'd nearly lost his daughter's trust. He'd faced threats, fear, and months of uncertainty. But when he looked back at that rainy night in Buckingham Palace, standing in the shadows with a brown envelope in his hands, he knew he'd make the same choice again. Because some truths are worth the cost. Some secrets deserve to be exposed. And sometimes, one person speaking up is enough to change everything. Thomas Parker finished his coffee, stood, and walked out into the London afternoon. Just a man, imperfect, scared, brave, free.